Hello and welcome to the Gambling Files podcast, the podcast in which 50% of presenters own very few kitchen gadgets, while the other 50% are, I'm not going to say obsessed with kitchen gadgets, but certainly have a lot of kitchen gadgets. I'm sure you can guess which is which. On the subject of which, I'd like to introduce my co-host, Mr. Fintan Costello. I am your other host, John Bruford. Fintan, hello.
What kitchen gadgets? What are
You love kitchen gadgets and you fucking know it. You do. I know you love kitchen gadgets.
You've got a bigger air fryer than I do, John. You've got a
That's yeah, but that's not a number of gadgets. That's just because I eat a lot of meat.
Just saying. Like, there's wild accusations getting thrown around here. Wild accusations.
Fintan, have you got a lot of kitchen gadgets?
I don't think I do.
Have you got a blender?
Yes.
Smoothie maker?
No, but my blender's like, it'll blend your iPhone if you need to. Like, if the feds kick in the door, I can destroy a laptop in 10 seconds. That kind of thing.
Okay.
Which is how I like to choose my blenders.
So you put a lot of thought into your blender. I rest my case.
It's the YouTube Will It Blend guys, the Blend Tech. It was just really good marketing. So my wife's a big cook, so that's why we've got some kitchen stuff. And she was researching blenders, and I insisted we got the Blend Tech because of their amazing videos. The marketing works.
Okay.
For sure.
So you're blaming your kitchen gadget love on your significant other. That's what you're saying.
She's an amazing cook and she loves doing stuff in the kitchen. So I'm going to fully support that because it's absolutely in my best interest. Look, darling, I bought you a new knife. Isn't this amazing? That kind of thing.
Quick, cut some beef. But actually, no, your significant other is she vegetarian or vegan?
Vegan.
Okay, so that's good because a lot of vegan people I know are really, really lazy cooks. And I think actually vegan food, when you can cook and when you're willing to invest the time in it, can be really something.
Oh, it can be fantastic, but it does require lots more work. You've got to be a lot more organized. And yeah, it's definitely harder, for sure.
It's difficult for me too.
Well, you're literally the opposite, right? You're the carnivore end of the spectrum.
Yeah. But, I'm like, what shall I have today? Oh, yeah. Meat. Actually, that's not that difficult, is it? Sorry. Yeah.
It's not that difficult, mate.
It's delicious as well. Speaking of meat, I know you're looking forward to next year and ice in Barcelona because of your favorite steak restaurant being in the city.
Yep.
Unconnected to what we were just talking about.
I'm going to try and plan as many of my meals around that steak restaurant as I can, and it's all very exciting. So yeah, look forward to that.
Well, interestingly,
should be great.
ICE 2025 is organised by one of our sponsors, Clarion Gaming. Did you know that?
Well, isn't that amazing?
I know, right?
Isn't that amazing? And rumour has it we might be doing some podcast stuff.
That has been mooted.
Mooted is a great word.
It's
really
floating. Is a great word.
It's like a floater on top of the pool, just like hovering.
Just mooting around.
To scoop it up.
Having a good old moot. But speaking of sponsors as well, I'm also gonna mention Optimove, who I don't know if you know this.
I think you should.
But they are the providers of the number one CRM software in the iGaming industry. I don't know if did you know that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you did?
I did. They're famous for it. That's why.
That would explain that. Yeah. That's where I heard it.
Yeah,
I heard you saying it.
And they should click the link and go get the free demo and see how great it is.
Demo. It's a really good demo. And also, today's podcast, so just bear with me here, because it sounds as though I'm missing a sponsor, but I'm not. I'm coming full circle. Okay?
Oh, look at this.
We're joined by Conor O'Donovan. I don't know whether this is surprising to listeners, but Conor is an Irish gentleman, and he's with Tekkorp Capital. He's the African partner in the business, and he's talking to us about how businesses approach the African continent, issues with market entry and investment and things like that, and what their business is doing to mitigate some of the issues that are very, very common in such a massive and diverse market as the African one. And so that's really, really interesting. And it brings me to Every Matrix, our other sponsor, who recently secured the largest African turnkey deal with a partnership with Mbet. And Mbet has migrated from their previous provider, who we don't know and can't name, to work with Every Matrix. And they're going to be powering that in Tanzania and the Democratic Republic of Congo, which
That's cool.
Reminds me of when I used to work at QVC, because they sell a lot of tanzanite jewelry. Tanzanite being a stone which is it's almost exclusively found in Tanzania, and it's a very, very nice stone. It's a fairly innocuous looking stone. It's not your diamond or your ruby or your emerald, but it's a very pleasant stone. But it's you know how some things are found just in certain areas, like Argentina and blue marble, and Tanzanite is one of those things. It's just found in Tanzania and I think one neighbouring country, which
got it.
Presumably
and I think that kind of migrate exactly, which came first. But I think that kind of migration is quite interesting for the odds matrix guys, because that's that's kind of what they're doing. They're migrating kind of tier 1, tier 2 type sports books onto their platform, so people can stop having to worry about their legacy tech and just upgrade and have odds matrix take care of it all for them, and
let somebody else worry about it.
Scale, super scalable.
But it is genuine. It is a sign that there's something very interesting there. If a deal of this size, in Africa, I think that's a good advert for a company.
Well, it's something that they're like when they were going through stuff with us. It's like because they've got so many like local offices and they really understand the local markets and stuff. Because it's one thing migrating, but migrating and understanding the local market and making sure everything's tailored to the customers, I think is one of what really jumped out at me with the odds matrix guys. Because it's one thing to sell a piece of kit. It's another thing to sell a piece of kit that's tailored to your needs, and they're two different things. Because making it tailored is actually really difficult, and that's the smart bit for anybody selling software. So yeah, it's really impressive what they're doing. So yeah, check them out as well and get the demo.
So not only are they sponsors of the industry's finest podcast, but they're also, it's topical about today's guest, Conor O'Donovan.
The way you linked it together, John, the seamless professional that you are.
I am a pro, Fintan.
I agree.
Meet Conor. Welcome to this week's first guest, probably only guest. I don't really know. I don't keep track, Fintan. We're joined by Conor O'Donovan, African partner for Tekkorp. Tekkorp is spelled Tekkorp. So you probably know the name, but you didn't know how to say it, because that's certainly how today's working out for me. Conor, welcome.
Hey guys, nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
As we always say at the start of an episode when people say that, let's wait until the end to see if you still want to thank us.
Well, it's one of those. Okay. Unfortunately, my internet is dropping. I have to go.
That also happens. What do you do, Conor?
What do I do? So with Tekkorp, I'll give you a little bit of background, I guess. So I've been working in African gambling for roughly the last 7-8 years. So I've been an operator down there. I've ran multi-territory brands. I've built product for the market, invested into 2 other product providers and so on. With Tekkorp, I partnered with Tekkorp to focus on M&A in the region. So Tekkorp will have a lot of international clients who are, interested in investing into Africa. Obviously, it's one of the global hotspots at the moment. Latam is heating up, and there's less opportunity there, and so on. So, a lot of the larger brands have been looking at Africa to enter, and are struggling to find targets to acquire down there. So, what Tekkorp do, we've evolved ourselves from pure M&A advisory, which we were originally for Africa, into creating a fund for the region. So rather than, clients or, potential operators trying to come in and find, investees and acquisitions, we're creating a fund ourselves where we'll, integrate different brands across the region, corporatize them, add in different services, and basically build a de-risked portfolio for hopefully to exit to one of the larger players in a few years' time. So that's where we are at the moment. It's a very fragmented market, Africa. There's 54 countries. Trying to acquire a multi-territory brand is, well, number one, you've got very little choice, and number two, you really don't know what you're getting because each market they're in, they've got different risk exposure and so on. And, trying to acquire some of the larger ones with, single market dominance, again, has its risk as well. And then everything else is just small little operators, mom and pop type operators across Africa, guys that got in early to get licenses or have, some media connections. And it just means for an operator of size, there's just very little to choose from. I've obviously worked there for years. So, quite connected within the region, have had my highs and my lows of operating down there, but I've had some successes. So know how to, hopefully expand, within the region. So very much a roll-up strategy. We'll roll up everything into the one fund, introduce services, grow from there, and hope to exit at some point in the future.
Very cool. So, like you said, Africa's 54 countries. So it's like, it's like somebody, your stereotypical, say, Swedish casino CEO sitting in Stockholm looking for his next growth opportunity, puts a pin in a map and says, right, we've conquered India. We're now going to go to Africa. 54 countries is a lot, and like the differences between the countries can be the difference between Nigeria and Kenya, and they're very, very, very different countries. Where would you even start? Like, how does that, are there, like, of the 54, how many are regulated markets or have licenses or payment methods, all that kind of where's, I can see why you'd use something like Tekkorp, because it just feels like what even happens here?
Yeah, I think the first thing is whether you're going to enter organically, get licensing and try and build your own operation, or whether you're going to acquire someone. So that's the first thing. A lot of brands have gone down and tried to enter organically. It seems like a simpler process on paper, and a lot of struggle. There's been some success stories, but there's a graveyard of brands that try to do that. So that's the first thing. So you need to make a clear decision on your approach there. What a lot of brands tend to do is focus on one of the big three. Now, I'm excluding North Africa from this, so just focusing on basically sub-Saharan Africa. So you've got South Africa, which is showing huge growth. You've got Nigeria and Kenya. All have their own problems. Nigeria has currency issues, Kenya has tax issues, South Africa has regulatory issues. That's, obviously more than that, but that's, fair delineation between them. So that tends to be the first place they look. But these markets are incredibly competitive, and, a lot of the local operators have a lot of dominance, and it's just hard to break in. Africans in general, it's obviously different every country you go to, but Africans tend to be quite loyal to one brand, and then they'll split their wallet with a few other brands as well. So trying to get that cut into the market can be hard. So that's the first markets that the operators tend to focus on. And then, look, everyone is just following the success stories after that. Certain markets, some positive stories will come around about an operator entering and doing well, and then everyone else jumps on that being the new market to go after, and then they get too crowded. So there's no like the thing is, Africa, no one has really, bar a couple, no one has really set their sights in Africa and went, okay, how are we going to enter this? What's the strategy right across the region? There are a couple of exceptions to that. 888 obviously went in recently and are doing quite well in a few markets. But it's very much still, going after the markets they think are similar in size, so the top three, and then after that, just where they see a bit of buzz, a bit of growth. From my perspective, for someone that's operated in Africa for a while, I would follow the mobile money trends. So mobile money outside of Nigeria and South Africa, mobile money tends to drive it tends to drive a lot of the growth in the region. So that's probably my key focus. You'll look at that. You'll look at the regulator. A couple of other, urbanization, 4G, all that sort of stuff.
Sure.
But that's what would drive my focus.
Because and for mobile money, so it was because it was really interesting. Like when obviously mobile phone adoption, the use of like phone credit as a currency, which then spawned M-Pesa and a bunch of mobile, like how ubiquitous, or like, is it like one or two kind of key mobile money platforms, or has every country got its own thing, or is it like a Vodafone thing across multiple countries, or how does that work?
Yeah, so it's different by different. Each market is different. There are a couple of major brands down there, so or operator brands, I guess you call them. Airtel, like you said, Vodacom, M-Pesa, MTN out of South Africa. I guess their success story is kind of similar to what we're looking to do in Tekkorp. So MTN would have come in and bought up a lot of local operators across the region, and would have, obviously rebranded them, introduced new technology, invested in new product, new CRM, marketing, and so on. And the investment from these brands have really grown that mobile money side of the business. So, a lot of markets would have had virtually no mobile money maybe 5 years ago, outside of some of the core ones in East Africa. These guys have obviously invested in, and the penetration is increasing significantly at the moment. It's a similar model, I guess, to what we're doing with Tekkorp as well. So same thing, we're coming in, buying up something which needs an infusion of support and services and whatever. But yeah, most markets in East Africa now would have pretty good penetration of mobile money. West Africa growing rapidly, but still a little bit behind it in certain markets, and same with Central. But it's taking up pace. It's really growing at a rapid rate, and gambling tends to follow that.
For sure. And then it's just basically just roll out phone network. Phones are cheap these days. Everyone can have a smartphone, and off you go. Yeah. What about, obviously, one of the original use cases for crypto was to allow, cheap money transfers, cheap ways of, paying for services and stuff. Obviously, it's kind of decoupled a little bit from that, or a lot, depending when you look at it. Is crypto a common payment method, or is it more the mobile money networks?
Crypto, it's definitely growing. It's growing as a means to move money outside the banking system, so in and out of territories. The everyday gambler, punter, or whatever doesn't tend to have access to that. So to get access to crypto exchanges and so on, you need to be much more tech savvy, I think, than a lot of our target customers. That said, Kenya, probably Nigeria, Ghana, And South Africa, of course, there is huge growth in that. We see crypto as more of a VIP play. So, the guys that, in Africa, we see credit cards and bank cards as more of a VIP play as well, There's a clear gap between the two. Mobile money is mass market, and then crypto is very, minimal users down there.
Yeah, it's
okay. Larger transactions, obviously.
Understood. Okay, that makes sense. And then, and I suppose it probably with the crypto and stuff as well, it's probably as much about like remittances from abroad or like countries with a larger diaspora of people, like, I don't know, Nigeria, like famous for people moving abroad and setting up businesses and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
And then so historically, kind of soccer was the football betting was the product in Africa, just as a catch-all. Like, is that still the trend? Is casino, like, what's happening with casino, or what's going on there?
Yeah, so COVID changed, the market completely. In fact, I was launching my own betting brand in Kenya at the start of 2020, just as COVID hit. So, you do your launch checklist of product marketing, everything in place. Next thing, global leagues are gone. So we had to try to involve, yeah. So we had to try and involve as most of the market did. But yeah, so I would have said, pre-COVID, everything was sports betting. Like, within sports betting, 90% was football. Of that, 80% was English Premier League, and whatever. Now that's changed. Even within sports betting, there's less. I think historically everyone thought was bet small, win big, multi-leg, multiples. That's changed slightly. You get, depending on the market, some are more mature. You do get a lot more, in play and so on. But that sports betting, overall, the shift has been huge towards casino. So especially if you classify it as casino, especially crash style games, aviator, so on. I would say on average, probably 65-35 in weighted towards casino stroke crash at the moment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's huge.
Wow.
Instant win has just, taken off.
Amazing. Okay. And is that because of... Oh, sorry, go.
Oh, carry
on. No, go. No, you were sounding way more interesting.
Fine. I'll just mute my microphone and play along. I was talking to one of the South African operators. I spoke, and I can't remember which one it was, which is really bad, isn't it? But one of the land-based operators, CEOs, and they were talking about the sort of the path through COVID for them. And it was really fascinating because they got their mobile and online products ready just before COVID, and then COVID hit, and it basically kept them turning over through. I mean, it was just incredibly serendipitous. But you mentioned, obviously, whenever people talk about Africa, the conversation usually starts with South Africa because it's the most mature market. It's got a mature land-based market. When online gaming was coming through, and I'm asking you this because I genuinely can't remember. Years and years ago, I interviewed a dude called Derek Oret, who was the head of the Casino Association in South Africa, and is a good guy. He's a very nice man. And he was saying to me, like I say, this is well over a decade ago. He was saying that they were talking about issuing licenses to online licenses only to people that had a land-based license. Is that what happened in South Africa? Is that why the online market is basically completely dominated by the land-based?
Most regulators, so it's broken up into multiple regulators in South Africa. Most of them require that you have some retail premises. So KZN, for example, I'm looking at the moment. To get online, you must have a retail shop as well, attached to that license. Now that can be a cashless, concept type store or whatever. You can get around having to run a retail operation. But totally, that's how it evolved. It was always a retail market, which then evolved online, and it's heavily regulated in general down there, so it's quite challenging for a new operator to come in.
Well, potentially even more so if the Competition Commission lets the merger happen with Sun International, and it's the third out of three, and I can't remember what they're called. Shit, this is really bad, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah.
Begins with a P. But yeah, so they're trying to take over one of, because there's only three actual casino operators in South Africa now, anyway. And then so that's going to potentially, if that's allowed, become even more squeezed. So I actually think it's the most interesting time for the South African gambling market in decades, probably.
Well, look, the market, it's so complicated down there. It's because you've got all the different gaming regulators, you've got state, and you've got provincial regulators. To get your platform licensed there, even if it's for your own brand use, you need to license that locally, which can take a long time and red tape heavy. Like a lot of things down in South Africa. And then you have get your own licensing. Historically, there was no casino at all. So it was really dominated by, the retail betting guys. And then they just had, online was just like another channel for them. Obviously Betway came in then and started to grow the market heavily. And at the moment it would be Hollywood Bet and Betway dominate. Things have changed a lot now, and there's obviously a lot more crash in casino games as well. What happened though is, sorry to circle back to what you're referencing, the casino guys kind of missed the boat slightly. So they spent their time trying to block, betting companies from doing online casino. And in a large part it worked. Actual online casino, still isn't permissible in the main, but RNG style games and basically instant win style games have just taken over, and that's the market now. The casino guys lost their position in that, so I think now they're obviously they see what they lost, so I think that type of M&A play, bringing in big partners that can partner on the online side of the business, will be a key move going forward.
But we're seeing that in markets all around the world. Like the land-based operators are just, North America being the best example, the land-based operators just completely missed the boat. I've always likened it to the porn market, because if you look at the historical big names in porn, none of them exist anymore.
Yeah.
They all looked at the internet,
biggest
didn't
brand
get
in
it.
the world, right?
Yeah, and it ended up doing fashion licensing and all of that. And it honestly, there's a complete parallel there. And luckily, I've worked in both markets.
Yeah, I don't know the porn industry, being honest, but yeah, that's
just dabble. So, because what's interesting as well is the concept of local champions. So, like, I've worked with a lot of online casino people who are experts and South African. So there's definitely like expertise in the country. And it could have been from an export perspective and things as well. But if you look, it's like, so I'm in Amsterdam. So Naspers is I think the second or third biggest company on the Dutch Stock Exchange, which is a South African business that made its money investing in, was it Alibaba or Tencent, or they're like the third biggest shareholder or something in one of the big Chinese companies. And then they turned that into like a massive South African based digital, like car listings and real estate, and they're doing all sorts of stuff. What are the odds? Because you've talked a lot about kind of people coming into the market. What are the odds of nurturing a local champion?
Sorry, what are the odds of nurturing what?
A local champion. So like rather than it being, a Western company coming into Africa to roll up online gambling, is there chances that like a local company is like, actually these are the guys who are going to do it, but they're already here and they're from the country and they understand things better? Is there a chance of that happening?
Yeah, well, like the most dominant players across Africa are homegrown, so they tend to be. Now they don't all have 100% African, ownership and management.
Sure.
A lot of it would have been some fairly savvy investors getting in 10 years ago and investing into different brands. So if you look right across the continent, like the market leader in Nigeria, well, that's changed recently, but even the leader now is it's African. Kenya is African. South Africa is African. Right across the region, it tends to be local brands which are dominating, and there's a number of reasons for that. I think number one, foreign brands have really struggled with the product side of things. So, there's been because I've worked with local and foreign brands,
Sure.
And there can be a little bit of an arrogance, to foreign operators. They feel, that people should adapt. What we're bringing is better, so why won't they use what's better rather than the crap they're using at the moment or whatever they're. So that I think that's part of it. Payments has been really hard to adapt to. Like payments in Africa with mobile money need to be instantaneous. It needs to be literally instantaneous. Like if someone's waiting for a minute for their mobile money to come back, they feel straight away they jump to these guys are trying to steal from me. These are fraudsters.
Yeah.
So the kind of unique basics of Africa has favored the locals because they grow up understanding it. They're in that ecosystem already. And I also think a lot of the foreign brands haven't probably put their A team on Africa either. It's kind of like an afterthought. Let's go into Africa. It's going to be 2% of our overall revenue. Let's put, our C team on this. No offense to anyone that led the operations.
He said it, not me.
So I think that historically has favored the locals.
Sure.
I think it's a roundabout way to getting to. I think to get to the next level, though, I don't think as a whole. No, there's obviously brands that are like Betway, etc., which are doing incredibly well there. But I think most companies down there don't have the capital, to expand at the way they need to. So I think it's going to happen one way or another. It's foreign capital is going to enter. It's entering every other industry. If you look at environmental, healthcare, everything in Africa is foreign direct investment, but gambling lesser so. So it's certainly going to go that way. For Africa to grow, I think it has to be viewed as almost one unit. Obviously, a lot of diversity within that, but sure. Because each market is so small, it just needs to be viewed as a complicated jigsaw. That needs to be executed on in different markets, but overall, it's one. And
I suppose the reason you can look at it as one kind of way in one unit is that if obviously payment methods will vary. And language can vary, but the product being like if it's Crash Games or Premier League football, it's kind of a homogenized, pretty much a homogenized product. So it's really just kind of some of the service points.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh no, this country's all about cricket and this country's all about a sport you've never heard of and this country's all about this. If it's all like pretty much the same product, then it's just, okay, we need payment methods for this. So it's a bit like if you're an operator and you've been rolling out your US strategy. Every state has got its own nuances and its own tax and its own product requirements, but to meet legislation. But basically, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
So it sounds kind of similar idea of like it's a state or a country by country led thing, but it's fairly similar type. It's once you've got this Crash Game, as long as you can plug in the payment method into the wallet and you've got the right language.
No, agreed. Agreed. Even payments is pretty standardized. Like in a lot of cases, you can have the one PSP API, and it'll plug into multiple different territories.
Okay.
Products certainly. Look, there languages. I guess. You need to have, like East Africa, you have Swahili and certain local languages. West Africa has English and other local languages. You've got French speaking. So there is a bit of challenge in all the local languages, I guess. The marketing is going to be different, obviously, in different media and in different region. But yeah, you're correct. Outside of that, product is pretty standardized across regions. Definitely, I think the corporate side of it is a challenge because you've different regulators, different tax in each region. Moving money, repatriating profits, and so on can be challenging. It's certainly doable. Legally doable, but it requires putting the time into putting the correct structures in place and having the right corporate framework of licensing brands and licensing technology and having gaming operations in different structures and so on. So there's a bit of work on that side of things, but yeah, basically there's local nuances, but it's the one big market.
Understood. Okay. And then so then your fund, can you tell us a bit more about that? Is that possible? Like how big is it? Kind of stuff you're doing with it? Like people invest into it, or how does that all work?
Yeah, no, we're pretty early with it. So we've the Tekkorp team, so the backers of Tekkorp, our industry veterans, I'd say. I think between them all, different M&A deals and so on I think they've closed something like 25 billion at the moment in M&A in the industry. All the guys have successful careers, they have had significant exits and so on. So Tekkorp and friends will be investing in themselves. And that gets us off the mark. We can start making some smaller acquisitions. We are in very advanced talks on private equity at the moment as well. That will be quite significant as a round one. So, it doesn't get us the top guys in the market, but it really, with the right strategy, we can get a really good footprint across a number of countries in Africa. So we're focused on that at the moment. I think given who's coming in on the Tekkorp side, the backers, there's quite a bit of interest, from private equity. We're steering away from, I guess, operators and smart money because, there's a cap to that. You can't bring in multiple operators at this point. So it'll be private equity, and at some point in the future, then we would look to potentially exit or sell a significant part of the fund to an operator looking to enter. So the strategy, I think I touched on earlier, but it's to start with, at least it's looking for, I would say, operations regionally, which have probably reached their maximum cap at the moment. They can't take it any further. Guys that would have had pole position in the market, might have been one of the first licenses in a given region, have taken it to where they can take it to, and see the writing on the wall now, see, more and more interest from some of the bigger guys looking to enter, or having just entered and are starting to take market share from them. So there are perfect targets. So you would say maybe top 3 in the market. If, it's a smaller territory, slightly bigger territory, maybe top 5, and we would acquire them or invest into them depending on the deal. And as part of that, if needed, obviously we're going to back very good management teams. But, I think all of these guys will need some support, whether it's, technology upgrades or product or marketing and so on. So that's our first entry point, those type of players. We obviously, as we grow the assets within the fund, and as we hopefully start to make returns, we will look for bigger and bigger deals. And look, the ultimate goal is, this is very lofty, but there's 54 countries in Africa. Obviously, not all of them are regulated, but we'd like to basically be in the top 3 in every market that's relevant. We won't have more than one operation in a region, but we'll have a network of operators, and all these guys can take advantage of unit economies on media deals and marketing deals and brand and ambassadors and so on,
or pricing or tech, or there's so many synergies once you start getting into it, right? Even just payment hey, we've got optimal payment processing fees. Just
exactly.
That alone, right?
0.5%, which makes a massive difference. Yeah. So, I think we're in a good position to do that. And we're in a good position to bring in expertise from outside of Africa, because it does need, the industry is still relatively young compared to other regions. Technology and, the online ecosystem of affiliates and, digital marketing and so on is still relatively early stage. Again, it's incredibly fragmented down there as well. So I think we can bring in a lot of expertise to support on that. And I guess that's where we want to go. There's, I think there's opportunity to extend that ecosystem as well. Some media in Africa is very undervalued. Payments businesses down there, could potential for infusion of capital into those guys as well to help them scale in the region. So we wouldn't, although predominantly gaming, we're looking at the broader ecosystem around that, how we can build a very, very effective operation across the region.
Makes perfect sense. Everybody needs payment processing.
Yeah.
We're not gambling companies, we're payment processors.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay, that's really cool. And do you guys do you have people on the ground, or how is it? Structurally, how are you guys set up for Africa?
Yeah, so I have my own operations in Africa. So I've managed teams that are for quite a while. I've got a team in Mozambique. I've got a team in Kenya, Zambia, and a few different freelancers working around the place. So I've managed teams in Africa for years. With this, it'll be a completely different structure. I will probably rely on some key resources to start with, but we will be hiring a sales team. I'm actually in the process of that at the moment. So I think we need to, reaching out to some of the main players that people know is relatively easy. But what we need to do is build out the infrastructure of, little operators in every market and media companies and so on. So we want to build that database and starting to make inroads in getting to know them. It's not a day one thing. It's going to take time, but sure. Already, we've had some press releases on it, and there's been a huge amount of interest from local operators in Africa. So it's quite promising. The valuations there are still pretty good as well. So we will be, not to give away exactly how much we'll pay, but I think, in general, somewhere around the 4 to 6x EBITDA multiple is kind of the sweet spot.
Sure.
We will look at companies, this last 12-month EBITDA, we will look at companies that are, not quite profitable yet, but show a lot of promise, or if there's,
sure,
or can with our support. So, but the values, they're still quite good compared to LATAM. What we would hope to do is obviously acquire them at a lower value, increase revenue, and take advantage of growth in the region, and then obviously.
But you're also taking a huge risk and huge investment, and there's it's not just a. There's a lot going on there, which because if you were an operator and you could just walk in and just say, right, we're now number 3 across all, or at least top 3 across all these markets, and there's an infrastructure and a setup and everything's working the way we want it. That's brilliant. That saves a massive headache. It's a great idea. I love it. Yeah.
Well, I hope so. So, look, there's a fund like that can give significant returns anyway to investors. So like exiting would be beautiful in a few years. But look,
or you've got a great business either way. Like it's, it's fine.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's really cool. Fantastic. I love it. That's super interesting. So basically then anybody listening, if you're, top 3, top 5 operator and you want to have a chat, give Conor a shout. We'll put his details in the descriptions. And I presume you're hiring as well then, will be part of this.
Yeah, no, I am hiring. That's always a dangerous one to put out now. I don't want to get inundated. But yeah, no, we are. So we will be hiring there's a couple of levels of roles we'll be hiring for. We will be hiring a management team. Now, I want that to be a mix of, African industry people.
Yeah, of course.
Potentially some European as well. So that is, incredibly important. At the moment, my first round of hiring is some sales guys within the African region. So that's just to help us generate some targets. But obviously, once we close our first target, we need a management team in place to support. So, that is probably a 3-month play, to get people in place. But to reach out to me, you're going to share my details. You grab me on LinkedIn. I'm always open for a chat or, to catch up on stuff.
It's interesting that you're hiring because, what you were saying earlier about most companies, they're not putting their A team into Africa. I would definitely fit the not in the A team bracket. Just throw my hat in the ring there. If you want a substandard team, I can help with that for sure.
That's very, very generous of you. Thank you. That's one area we'd like to do it slightly differently. We'd like to actually put an A team. That's the innovation behind this. We're going to put an A team in place.
Interesting.
Look, guys, I think the key to Africa is still relatively small. I would think you'd put the betting industry, online and some retail, about the regulated size of somewhere around 5 billion across Africa at the moment.
Wow.
Over the next few years, I think that's probably going to double. There's significant growth in there. You're looking at 20% plus growth in different markets. Some of them are off the charts, obviously, because they're starting from quite low level. But it's hugely exciting. It's not without its risk, and I think that's where we come in. We're trying to mitigate that as best as we can. Build a diversified portfolio. Take away the local risk because any market can. Kenya is a prime example. I had 2 betting brands in Kenya back in 2019, and there was a huge amount of uncertainty about taxes at the time, and the whole industry wasn't compliant because he couldn't be compliant because there was confusion on winnings tax and how it should be, levied to customers and so on. So people weren't deducting for winnings tax. And if any one brand decided to be the first one to do it, they'd be out of business because none of the other operators did. So what happened is a huge amount of, tax debt, paper tax debt built up in the industry. And, the regulator and the tax authority pushed M-Pesa to shut off everyone's payables, which is mobile money bank accounts. And it basically killed the industry overnight. SportPesa, who were hugely dominant there, were out of the market. And obviously another couple of operators grew up since then and the market's changed again. But the point of that is that's Africa. Any one market can, click of a finger, things can change. They can introduce a new, stake tax or something else, which can, jeopardize the whole industry. A lot of the time, as the tax authorities don't really get gambling, to see the big figure stakes and turnover and so on, and they see their receipts and they know they're not in their head, they're not making enough. So the point is, in Africa, you can make a fortune in any of these markets, but you're also at a huge amount of risk. So I think what we're trying to do is just diversify that and build a portfolio where you're protected.
That's very smart. That makes a lot of sense. Really clever.
Where are you based in Africa?
So I'm not in Africa at the moment. I'm based out of London. London and Dubai is where I spend a lot of time, and Dublin, where I'm from. I travel down to Africa probably every 6 weeks or so. I'll go down, take a week down or 2 weeks down. So I live on the road. I'm basically homeless. I'm just live on planes, unfortunately.
We've all been there, except Fintan.
Yeah. Yeah, you haven't, Fintan, no. You.
I live on planes.
I think my homeless and yours are probably quite different, though.
Oh, I've never been homeless. No, I've never been homeless. Okay. I misunderstood. I've done a lot of flying, but I've never been homeless.
Never homeless. That's the takeaway from this, Conor. Tekkorp Africa partner is homeless.
Well, that's the headline. You've got to have the punchy headline to sell this.
Yeah, exactly. Rags to riches.
Today, rags. Tomorrow, more rags.
Yeah.
Fabulous, Conor. Thank you for joining us and telling us about what is genuinely an exciting and seems to be well thought out venture. I mean, Africa is it is incredibly complex. It's an incredible mixture of languages. It's an extraordinary mixture of different stresses on regulatory environments. There's a huge mixture of religions. It's an amazing continent. I envy you working in it. I think that's very, very exciting. So we wish you the very best of luck with that.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you very, very much.
Keep us updated as things progress as well. It'd be great to
I will do.
check in.
Cool.